Well, Michael, welcome to Fly Experience at Darling Harbour. We're sitting in the flight deck of the 737-800 aircraft here on the active runway 34 here in Macau. And we've also got our little second officers there in the back, all viewing our flight and giving us a bit of a helping hand today. Now, I know that you watched the video outside and the captain explained a few things to you, but what I'll do is I'll very, very quickly here go through my own pre-flight briefing, just because you've got everything here in front of you, and it's a lot easier to understand when you can actually visually see and also touch and feel things. So Michael, the very first thing that I will introduce is this big black thing here in front of you. This here is the yoke, controls the aeroplane in flight and in flight only. If you do anything here on the ground, it won't actually do anything. So have a bit of a feel, and the heaviness that you'll feel by pushing it forward, pulling it back, is exactly like the real life aircraft down to a T. Now the way that we steer the aeroplane here on the ground, it might be natural instinct to start steering it like this, because I guarantee you around about 97% of people will do it. But the way that you're going to keep the aeroplane straight during the takeoff run and also during the landing roll will be using your feet today. So if you want to go left, you just push a little bit of left, and if you want to go right, you just push a little bit of right. Unfortunately, the rudder pedals don't replicate the 737-800 whatsoever, so you only need about that much movement, not much at all. And that tiller wheel there is also another way that will steer the aeroplane, but we probably won't use that today. What that does is that just gives you a tighter turn over the rudder pedals. Now the brakes, they're actually on top of the rudders. There's some spongy pads, but you don't need those today because Boeing has developed, as well as Airbus, an automatic braking system. They reckon that the plane does a better job than what us pilots do, and in fact they are correct. So we'll use the automatic braking system just like any other captain would on a day-to-day flight. Now the first screen that you see here, this here is your primary flight display, shows you all your primary parameters of your flight. Now are you familiar with this little section here, being the artificial horizon, just like you would have seen in the glider, I can imagine? Yep. So the sky, the ground goes up by 2.5 degrees, 5, 7.5, 10, so on and so forth. All the way to the furthest left is your airspeed indicator tape, and all the way to the furthest right is your altimeter. Tells you how high you are in feet, of course. Now I can imagine you wouldn't have had a navigation display in a glider, but it's not too difficult. Think of it like your GPS. I'll zoom in here a little bit. The triangle is us, the aeroplane, always points to the top, everything else around it turns, and you'll see that in a second. The circle is the airport, and those two solid white lines there, they're a little bit hard to see, but that there is the runway 34. And all this colour that you see is all the terrain around us, and you can see there's a few mountains, but as we get airborne that will all disappear, as it won't be a threat any longer. Now the middle screens here shows you all your your engine parameters. Now the most important dials here, Michael, are the N1 gauges. Tells you how much thrust is being produced as a percentage in the left engine and also in the right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply manual braking here, and I'm going to also increase the throttles, which will increase the thrust. And you can hear those engines winding up, and I'll bring it back and the engines will wind down. But see how it's not instantaneous? It's there's got a bit of a lag in the system. You can appreciate that those engines are absolutely massive, and it takes a bit of time for the thrust to build up and the engines to spool up. But what we do have is, do you see those white lines beneath the dials? Those there are very important. For the takeoff run here, Michael, in a second I'm going to ask you to apply 40% power, and what I mean by that is for you to push forward on the throttles until those white lines reach 4, and you will find that the thrust will eventually catch up, and it's as simple as that. There's not much really else to it. Down here you got some fuel tanks, so the left fuel tank, which is in the left wing, the right fuel tank, which is in the right wing, and also the center tank where fuel is currently being drawn from in the belly of the aeroplane. Now if these here are the throttles, do you know what those ones there are, Michael, at all?
Yeah, that was the reverse thrust.
Spot on, mate. So you can have a go of those and see what happens. Engage the reverse thrusters by pulling them all the way to the top there. All the way to the top. Fantastic. And you can disengage those now by pushing them all the way forward. So we'll use the reverse thrusters as we come into land here on runway 34 in Macau on your second landing. Now the second way that helps us slow down the aeroplane is by the auto braking system, of course. The third way is by the spoilers. Now these are the speed brakes, as they're also known. These are the flaps that come up on the wing. Now you don't have to worry about this lever here today, because it'll come to the up position as a force is felt through the landing gear upon landing, and also when the reverse thrusters are activated. But we need to arm it, just like so. It sits on a little notch there. If you don't arm it, this here won't, the speed brakes won't move. But the lever that you do have to worry about is the ordinary flap lever. Now this here, the way that you work it, I'm used to in the little Cessna the back, but this here is a little bit different. You just need to lift it up first before bringing it back or forth. Just take note of number 1 and 15, there's a gate. It's shaped like a V. Now people find this probably the hardest thing to do. You just need to be really gentle with it. Take it to number 1, drop it in there. There's a little bit of movement and then just lift it out through the gate, nice and simple. So Michael, have a go of that, a bit of a practice run taking it up to 0. So down and in, and then out again.
Oh, I see.
So
you've got to stop each one.
yeah, that's it.
Okay.
And then pull it up and back through number 1 and then to number 5.
Okay.
You don't have to stop at each one, it's just number 1 and number 15. So so number 5 is over here, you can see the numbers down the side, and that's the flap setting that we use for takeoff.
What's the reason for stopping at 1?
Sorry? Yeah, so the reason why these are here, it's just a bit of a thing that Boeing developed. Pilots are so used to not looking at things. They just do it, they think they're so good that they just do it without looking. So when they pull it back, it's just as a bit of a signal saying, hey, look, listen, you know, to not inadvertently bring it too far back, too far forward. That's the only reason why they're there. Because if you bring it too far back, you'll find, you know, you'll be so focused that you'll start slowing down and then you'll stall and you'll have no idea that you've accidentally taken it to 30. But that's the reason why those simple little notches are there.
So is 5 takeoff?
5 is takeoff, yeah, it generates a little bit of lift there for us. Now the second last thing that I will probably, the third thing that I'll show you, the third last thing, these trim wheels. Now are you familiar with the concept of trim at all? Now you'll see these move, they're electrically driven. I'll worry about the trim today, just giving you a bit of a helping hand, but on the second run, if you're feeling confident, your trim is over here, so up and down. So you need to move both switches for it to work. Yep, sweet. So we'll see how you go there on the second circuit, and I might give you a bit of a run there, seeing how confident you feel. Up here, do you know what this is?
Oh, wheels. Yeah,
that's it. That's it. Yeah. So you need to pull it out first before bringing it up, pulling it out, bringing it off, or pulling it out and bringing it down. So you can have a bit of a practice run here. Michael taking the gear all the way to the top. Beautiful, and just back down again. Fantastic. And the very last thing that I will show you is this up here. Do you know what this is at all? It's called the mode control panel. What do you think it does?
I'm seeing course and speed, so I guess it's telling us if we're on, pointing the right way.
Kind of, yeah. It's your autopilot.
Oh, okay.
Now, a component of this autopilot is known as the auto throttle. We're going to use that today, Michael. Because it's far too much mucking around moving these back and forth. So during takeoff, you're actually going to press or turn on the auto throttle, meaning that the only time you're going to have to move these physically today is during takeoff and during landing. Let the airplane worry about the rest of it during our flight. Okay. Yeah, so you'll see these move throughout the entire flight. Yep. But I'm sick of my voice. Are you ready to go flying?
Yeah,
let's do it. Okay, so we are now on the active runway here in Macau. There are some checklists that there's some checks that we need to do before we bullet down the runway and take off here. If you bring your eyes up here, we have some landing lights. We have 2 on the nose wheel of the retractable landing gear and 1 on the left wing, 1 on the right wing. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 you can now turn on. Fantastic. Now we've got some strobe lights on our wingtips. Currently it's just a solid light. We must make them start strobing. This switch here needs to be pulled up to where it says strobe and steady. Fantastic. Now down here, are you familiar with what a transponder is? Do you know what it does?
Oh, that's the radio, is it?
Kind of, yeah. So all of this down here is the radio.
This tells where we are.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It tells the air traffic controllers where we are. So Michael, you can turn this dial from standby as far right as it can go to where it says TARA. Fantastic. And now the kids won't understand, but they'll definitely know what it is. They'll know it for a different reason. We need to notify our cabin crew that we're ready. That we've entered the runway and we're just about to take off. Now the way that we do that is we turn off the fasten seatbelt sign and turn it back on. So you can do that now. Turn it back on. Fasten seatbelts, everyone. And are you ready to go?
Yeah.
Fantastic. You guys haven't got any seatbelts, but it's up to Dad to make his landings as smooth as possible, okay? Ready to go, guys? Fantastic. Okay, Michael, now looking at me for 2 seconds, here's how it's going to work. In a second, you'll have your left hand on the yoke. You'll turn the parking brake off just like so. What you'll do is you'll increase the power up to 40% just like so. Now, do you know why we do that rather than going full power straight away?
No, but I notice they all do it. They hesitate for a bit.
That's exactly right,
Yeah.
and there's a reason behind it. Take a guess.
Bird strike or something?
Not really. It's more of taking care of your engines. We let them spool up gradually, because if you go into full power, there's a couple milliseconds there where, you know, the engine, you know, eases into going into full power that we miss, and you run the risk of stalling, surging, or shocking your engines. And I guarantee you, Michael, if you're a Qantas captain and you did one of those three things, you'd come to work the next morning and you'd be without a job, number one, and number two, a bill for $20 million to replace the engine that you just shocked. So we just ease into it, warming up the engines and then going into full power. So once the engines are nice and warm at 40%, just like so, press the N1 button. That's the last time you have to worry about moving these until we come into land. At that point, eyes down the end of the runway, both hands on the yoke, steer using a little bit of right, a little bit of left, whatever you feel is necessary. You'll hear me call out some speeds, 80 knots, V1, rotate. Once you hear me say rotate, start pulling back to about this position here. The nose will start to rise. We'll get the nose up to 15 degrees nose pitch up. Once it's approaching there, you don't have to let go, you just relax all the pressure just to neutral. I'll trim it out. Positive rate and climb, gear up, and we'll climb to 3,000. We'll go check out Macau from the sky. What do you reckon?
Sounds great.
The aeroplane's all yours, Captain. You're pilot in command now. Are you guys ready to go? Fantastic. Parking brake off. So pushing it forward.
Yep.
Now increasing the throttles up to 40%, which is around about 3 centimeters forward. And we're ready to go. Fantastic. Now we wait for 40%. There we go. Hit the M1 button with your other hand. Yep, so you're seeing that they're moving automatically now. We don't have to worry about those anymore. Eyes down the end of the runway. Fantastic. Now the engines are at takeoff power now, and they're all healthy. Now use your little bit of left foot, not too much at all. A little bit of right foot, if anything. Past 80 knots now. A little bit of left. A little bit more. Fantastic. V1, we're committed to the takeoff, and now rotate. Feet away from the rudders as well, because they're controlled automatically for us. And we're airborne. Start slackening off the pressure. So back to neutral, which is about here. Positive rate and climb there, Captain. Landing gear can now be raised all the way to the top. Beautiful. Now you can reduce the flap to number 1 as well, as I change the setting and speed us up to 230 knots. Now the most critical part of the takeoff is about the first 1,500 feet. Now we haven't passed that yet, so keep your nose at 15, best that you can. Beautiful. So we've passed 1,500 feet now. You can drop that nose down to 10 just by pushing the nose forward a little bit. And once your nose is there, you can also reduce the flap up to 0. Fantastic. Spot on. We've got about 700 feet to run. And the engines are still nice and healthy there. Probably around about now, start pushing that nose forward down to about 3.5, and that should level us off quite nicely here in Macau. And this is what Australian level roughly looks like putting along here. Now whenever you're ready here, Michael, start a left hand turn, not too big, not too small, and you can also pull back just a fraction, not too much, on the stick as well. Perfect. Now increase that turn to the left there. And we're flying onto the downwind leg of the circuit, which is parallel and 180 degrees in the opposite direction. Now see how your altitude's decreasing here?
Yeah.
The reason why that is that your nose isn't high enough in the turn, and we lose a little bit of lift. So pull that nose back a little bit, so pull it back a little bit more, and also increase your turn to the left just a little bit. A little bit more. Fantastic.
What was the little alert sound?
Yep, so that little alert sound, if you look here very, very quickly, see how I've got 3,000 in there?
Yep.
And see how 3,000 is marked for us? that there is saying that, hey, listen, Captain, you were at roughly at 3,000, but now we've descended 300 plus or minus. You're given a leeway of plus or minus 300,
Gotcha.
and that's the aeroplane saying, hey, look, listen, Captain, wake up, something's not right. And that's why the altitude is outlined in amber, saying it's a warning. So there we are again, 300 feet. We're descending through 300 feet minus on that 3,000. That's okay. It's not a big deal. You just enjoy flying. And there's the strip in the middle of the water there. Is that looking familiar?
Right. Yep.
Yeah, fantastic. Now
Cool.
Come to the right and roll or turn your wings level with the water, and also pitch that nose forward just a little bit. But otherwise, this is looking absolutely brilliant. Now, Michael, I would say that this is the cruise part of our flight. You need to come to the right just a little bit. We want to give ourselves plenty of room. But now comes the after takeoff checklist. So the very first thing that we do here, it is here on your yoke here, but the proper way that we do it is the landing gear comes to the middle where it says off, so you can do that. Fantastic, and that just locks the wheels in place. The auto brakes, they need to be one click to the right to where it says off. All your lights, 1, 2, 3, and 4 can now be turned off. And what we do is we just check that the flap is up, which it is, and that's the after takeoff checklist complete. We can also check the engine bleeds are on for engine number 1 and engine number 2, and they are. Now come to the right here a little bit. But otherwise the aeroplanes are nice and healthy here in the cruise. Now whereabouts are you from yourself, Michael? Local here in Sydney, are you? Ah, fantastic. And what do you do yourself?
I do a copy editor magazine.
Okay.
So, yeah.
What magazine? It's not Aviation Australia,
No,
is it?
unfortunately, no. It's just like an industry magazine.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And you've been in that industry for quite a while, have you?
Yeah. So a little bit of travel, but
yeah. Now, can you tell me what those diamonds are at all, if they're moving? The fact that they're moving is a bit of a clue for you.
Actually, I would have said that they're like waypoints that we're passing over the top of.
We can put waypoints, but we've got thousands in the sky. Any idea what those are? They actually are the aircraft that our radar's picking up, yeah.
Cool.
Now, pull back on the stick, and they're actually going to land in Macau. Actually, you can continue that descent now down to 2,000 feet, and we'll prepare the cabin for our first landing. Now, I'm going to mention to you, does this make sense, the fact that this dial here is effectively controlling our speed because the auto throttle's on? So if I want to go slower, if I want to go faster rather, I'll dial it up, and look what happens to the throttles. They should increase here, slowly, and I'll dial it back down to our actual speed. But you can dial that down now to the first speed of 180, and pull back on the stick here. We don't want to get any lower than 2,000 feet. And you can start a gentle turn towards the left there. I'm going to give you a hand and bring the flaps to number 1. Pull back on the stick here just a little bit more. Now, Michael, because we're approaching the aerodrome now, all the lights must be turned on.
Okay.
Fantastic. Now increase that turn to the right, left rather, sorry, just a little bit more, but otherwise you're doing a fantastic job. How are we going back there, guys? Good? Fantastic. Now, have you been looking at this white line at all?
Not at all.
Not at all? You've got the perfect turn. The reason is that this curved white line very quickly is a trend vector line, just like the engine showing you where the airplane will be at the end of your turn. And because you've kind of got it on the runway center line, all you have to do is roll the wings level. And look at this, the runway is right in front of us. So let's get those wheels down now, Captain. And I'll help you out with all the rest on the first run here. Yep, all the way down. Now, it's a little bit unorthodox because I'm slowing down and bringing the flap out quite a bit. Now, we're way too far to the right. We've overshot the runway. So, Michael, keep bringing it around to the left here. And we're a little bit low as well, so pull back on the stick just a little bit. Not overly much, but this here is looking much better now. Now, just keep flying in this direction here. And I'll help you out, slowing you down even further.
Is there wind in this simulation?
Yes, there is. We've got a little bit. It's coming from behind us, and it's only 5 knots, so it won't make much of a difference at all. Now, you can start a very gentle turn to the right and pushing that nose forward as well. Now, these are moving automatically, aren't they? In a second, I'm going to disengage that, and you're going to have authority over the throttles. Come to the left now, rolling the wings level. Yep, just like so. And this here is looking absolutely brilliant. You cannot get much better than this, except you need to come to the right here a little bit. Now, did you hear the airplane say 1,000 feet at all?
I didn't register that.
No, that's okay.
But yeah.
What I'll do is I'll disengage this now. Michael, bring your right hand to the throttles and keep your left hand there, nice and firmly, flying the airplane. You'll hear the airplane talk to you in a couple seconds. It'll say 500, 100, 50, 30, 20, and then 10. 50 is the magic. There's 500. 50 is the magical number. 50 is the number that you need to pull the throttles back, lift the nose at the same time. Let the aeroplane land firmly on the ground, and when I tell you when, apply full power, okay? Now, I know that's a lot of info, but I'll guide you through it.
Full power, this one?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Now, we're way too far to the left. Bring it around nice and gently to the right, and I'll help you get the old girl nice and straight. Have your feet ready on the rudders to keep straight, because that's the way we steer the aeroplane on the ground. And nice and gently back to the left. I know it might look a little bit unusual for you. This is looking absolutely perfect. Back to the right here a little bit. So there's 50. Yep, throttle back, throttle back. Come to the right a little bit. Perfect. Now just steer using your feet alone and come to the right a little bit more. Whenever you're ready here, Michael, full power. So slowly increase it to about that position there is fine. Take that hand back to the yoke. Remember, just steer using your feet, so left foot. Keep this in the middle. Left foot. V1 and rotate. Feet away from the rudders. Positive rate and climb. Landing gear can come up at your discretion there, Captain, whenever you're ready. Fantastic. I'll dial us up to 230 knots, but otherwise that was your first circuit. Very well done. How did you find it there, Michael? Not too bad?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot we were touching and going. I was
no, that's
wondering why
okay.
you're doing full speed.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Not a problem.
I went back into Flight Simulator Microsoft mode.
Oh, yep, as you do. Now, we'll wait till 1,500 feet, but what you can do is either to the left or the right. I'll leave it up to you. You can now commence your turn, seeing what it's like doing a climbing turn. So did you go to Macau for a holiday, was it?
Yeah, I was in Hong Kong and I just went across for the day.
Yep.
So
how long ago were you in Hong Kong?
Oh, this was about 3 years ago.
Okay.
But yeah, so I've been there, but not flown in. So
start dropping that nose all the way down to 5, and we'll just maintain our altitude of 3,000 feet. How'd you find Hong Kong?
Yeah, it's great.
It's pretty cool, hey?
Actually, I noticed, are you able to land at the historic Kai Tak?
We
Airport?
can, yeah, we've still
cool.
got it in our sim. It's, I mean, it's one of the most challenging approaches in the world.
Right.
But yeah, no, we've still got it in our sim. So for people who do longer experiences, we say choose a bit of a challenging airport, and Hong Kong is always pretty much predominantly the choice.
Right.
It's probably my favourite approach here in the sim, apart from Queenstown in New Zealand.
Oh, really?
Just because you've got mountains left, right in front of you, and left, right and centre, and it's just a small little pencil strip in the middle of the valley. So
Wow.
now tighten up that turn here just a little bit more. And I'll worry about the after takeoff checklist there for you, just so you can enjoy flying here, Michael. But otherwise, we're all good here in the 7.3. Now we're approaching that parallel with the runway, so you can start turning your wings level. Yeah, it's marked by that pink line there. So yeah, that's exactly right. You can come to the right just a little bit more. And rolling your wings level. Now we've already flown past it, even though the aircraft is saying that, or the GPS is saying that we're still before it. Now what you can do is start descending down to 2,000 feet just by pushing the nose forward gently. Now it doesn't have to go beneath the horizon, just has to stay above it. And people find that concept hard to comprehend. So if this here is flat with the horizon, you'll still descend like a brick, and you can see that the altitude is decreasing.
Right. Yep.
People usually think that you have to be at an angle like this to descend an aircraft, but that's just not the case. Now what we will also do now is prepare the cabin for landing. So this is the proper approach checklist for a full stop landing. The brakes need to come onto number 3. The speed brakes are now armed. You can turn on all your lights. And this would be where we set the atmospheric pressure. And I can tell you that it's the QNH is 1009er, and that's giving us the correct altimeter reading, because if the pressure was different, our altimeter would read incorrectly.
Okay.
And that can be extremely dangerous if you're in a cloud. Now you can start slowing down to 180 there, Captain. And I've got the flap there to you for number 1. And whenever you're ready, you can start a gentle turn to the right, pulling up on the nose, maintaining 2,000, all the way back until final, or until we see the runway rather. So pull back quite nicely there on the stick. Fantastic. So if you stop that there, see how you've got that line perfectly on the runway center line?
Yeah.
So at the moment that's showing that we're going to overshoot it. That's saying that we're right on the money, and
How clever is that?
it's fantastic. A pilot's life is far too easy, especially in this airplane. And we'll come in behind that aeroplane on approach there. It's a little bit hard for you to see. There she is. So that aeroplane is 1,600 feet below us, and that arrow pointing down means that it's continuing its descent.
Okay. Oh, I see, yeah.
Now pull back on the stick here. We don't want to descend any further. You can slow us down even further there to 160 though. Lights are all on, fasten seatbelt sign comes off and back on. And the flaps can come to number 5.
Oh, the secret's out now.
That's
So
exactly
now I know
right.
how they
Yeah,
get it right
that's
each
exactly
time.
right. That's exactly right, mate. And I like the fact, like, I mean, that's correct. Sometimes people think that they have to get that onto the runway center line, but it's not. It's just a tangent off the circular figure that you've got there. But there's the runway. Let's get the gear down now. Fantastic. 150 knots there, Captain. And I'll help you getting the flap out to 15. Now we're going to overshoot the runway here a little bit, but you can tighten up the turn. And you can also start descending now, which you were already doing, which is fantastic. You can start straightening up the aeroplane. Slow us down to 143 there, Captain. And the flaps one final time come out to flap setting 30.
Okay.
Yep, so you can get them out to 30 here. Beautiful. Now we're too far to the left, so bring it to the right here a little bit. And pushing the nose forward a little bit. There's 1,000 feet. And come to the left now, nice and gentle. We've got about 4 miles to run. Now I'll disconnect these. These are all yours now, Michael. Now the difference with this landing, so you can bring your right hand here now, is that we're going to do a full stop. Now just have your eyes on the runway. There's no need to have your eyes inside whatsoever. Once you pull the throttles back, all wheels are on the ground. Still steer the aeroplane, but reverse thrusters come up this time. Because we're actually going to stop the aeroplane this time. Otherwise, this is fantastic. Come to the right just a fraction.
500.
But otherwise, this here is absolutely perfect. Probably speed up a little bit, so push the throttles forward just a touch. And come to the right just a touch as well. A little bit to the right there. The wind behind, being on our backside isn't helping us at all. But come to the right here a little bit. A little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Throttle back just a little bit here. Not all the way back just yet. Come to the left now.
100.
A little bit more to the left. A little bit more.
50.
Fantastic. There's the magic number. Throttle back.
30.
Lift the nose a little bit.
20. 10.
Fantastic. And reverse thrust. Beautiful.
Oops, that was meant to be in 2 stages.
That's okay. You can disengage reverse thrust. You can get the parking brake on there. And congratulations, Michael, you flew the 737-800, my friend.
Fantastic.
How'd you find it?
That was great.
Not too bad. How realistic did you find it?
Oh, totally. I mean, you were doing about 70% of the
I don't.
tasks.
No, don't. I mean, people think that us instructors sit here and fly the airplane, but the only reason why we've got our hand here is because we need to move the trim wheels to give you guys a bit of a helping hand. But otherwise, that was pretty much all you, mate. So, congratulations, you absolutely nailed it. How did you guys find it? Pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty cool.